Good morning. I'd like to thank very deeply the British Council for the honor of presenting here, as well as English in Action for their kind invitation. Before I go any further, I want to give a huge thanks and applause, I guess, from everyone to the staff in the back who've been doing such a good job of filming and making sure the IT runs smoothly. So we could give them a hand. Thank you for all you've been doing this morning and also for yesterday, because for me, when I first looked back and saw the production, you can't even believe that this is happening for this event. So it underscores the importance. One of the things I wanted to start out with before I began my presentation, when I was invited to this event, I was really excited because for me, I consider myself a feminist. But also a feminist who believes in gender equality of both or all genders, as the case may be in some countries. And what I wanted to point out, and it was, I think in my sleep delirium last night trying to adjust from London time, I just thought about yesterday and how, for me it was strange that the event is education, technology, and women. And yesterday, only a few women in the audience actually mentioned women. We had about 6, I think, total women presenters for the day. And for me, this bothered me because, women are important, gender issues are important, yet we didn't see that come out in the panels or the people participating. And for me, that kind of is reflective of the problem that we'll probably talk about today. I know I'll talk about it in my presentation, but I'm sure my colleagues from the British Council and English in Action will also bring those up in their subsequent presentations. So what I would like to do today, especially because I felt a bit cheated because I've never been to Bangladesh before, but I didn't get to hear any stories from my Bangladeshi sisters. So I hope today, especially all the women I see in the room today, I hope we'll hear from you more. And I'd like to actually ask the support of the men in the room to be encouraging to the women who are around you. Encourage them to speak. Don't cut people off. Let their voices shine, because I think today is such a unique opportunity to address an issue that's not talked about often, but that is so important as countries like Bangladesh move forward with education technology. Because, yesterday, as my colleagues, Dr. Power and Dr. Mataram, if I'm getting that correct, presented, there's a lot of, confusion over the evidence. It seems to be a good thing in certain cases with certain supports. But one thing you also have to consider is that not every learner is the same, and gender is a very sensitive cultural issue that rears its heads in classrooms. And although Andy gave such a kind introduction about me, one thing he forgot to mention is that before entering the private sector, I worked as a teacher for 8 years in North America, Africa, Asia, and also in Europe. So when I'm talking to you today, I'm coming also from the perspective of a teacher who's worked in these diverse backgrounds and seen some of the gender issues firsthand as a student, but then also in the U.S. experiencing that growing up. So can I get the men to say yeah to supporting women's participation today, especially since we only have half a day for this part? Men? Yeah, stronger, yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. I asked that because this is an issue that's gender, and I'll explain that later, is not just women and girls. Gender is not synonymous with that. It also acknowledges that men and boys have a role to play in this issue. Okay, so the title of my presentation, as you see, is Gender Matters to Mobile Learning, Bangladesh and Beyond. So to give you a brief overview, I'm going to kind of give some global examples of gender and mobile learning, and not kind of like yesterday, I thought there was a strong focus on technology. I'm actually going to be focusing on some of what was taught, some of what was observed as outcomes of various mobile learning implementations globally that had a gender focus. Okay. So as Andy mentioned, I work for the GSMA, and the GSMA is the trade association for nearly 800 mobile network operators globally, and more than 200 associate members in the wider mobile ecosystem. So here in Bangladesh, when you talk about mobile network operators, I think I captured all of them. There are 6 here. And as Dr. Chowdhury mentioned yesterday, you have about 111 million mobile subscribers in a country with a population of about 160 to 170 million people, which is quite incredible. And so my company was actually here just a few weeks ago doing an event with the operators. And I believe Masuda will be, or Rashida will present later about the English in Action project that they're going to implement with girls, and that actually is with the support of a grant from the GSMA to the partner for that partnership, Roby. Okay, all right, so I like to shake things up a bit. What I would like everyone to do at your table, we're going to have a 5-minute breakout session. So if you see on the screen, I have 2 questions, and I'll read them aloud as well, in case you're too far away to see them. The first question is, what are the biggest challenges facing girls and women who would like to participate in education in your context? Okay? What are the biggest challenges facing girls and women who would like to participate in education in your context? Everyone at the table, just give a 1-word answer. And among your table, can you nominate 1 person to report on the responses? So I'll give you about 2 minutes to do that, and then we'll do the reporting before we move to the next question. Okay? Are there any questions about what I want you to do? No? All right, 2 minutes, go. All right, everybody, I hate to interrupt the discussion. If we could start from the table to my far right, if we could have the reporter to share some of the words that people identified as big challenges. Yes.
So we are participating. So the discussion that was here. Okay, the discussion which was going on here, that the greatest or the biggest challenge for women in Bangladesh or girls as such are that they feel that they are not secured enough. Their social security is the problem for them.
Security.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The table behind.
Hello. We have gathered 4 points from this table. First one is early marriage. This is a barrier. The second one is motivation. Motivation from the society, motivation from the family, motivation for the girls themselves. And then family responsibilities. They are surrounded by lots of responsibilities in the family, the girls. That's why they are not going to take lots of education.
Sure.
And then less productivity.
Less productivity.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
And if we could pass it to the table in the center.
Okay, so in our table we discussed about these problems, challenges. So each person was supposed to give one word. So
Okay.
there so many words come up. We are not repeating the words which have come in the other tables. So we have got poverty is the first challenge, and insecurity it has come, and superstition, and male-dominated society is another. And another one is socially constructed religious belief, which always, that means comes as a barrier for girls' education in our country. Early marriage, they have repeated, yeah.
Sure.
We
Thank you.
didn't
And I'll
repeat
like
the word
to.
which has been selected by other tables. We didn't repeat it.
Okay,
Early marriage,
not a
early
problem.
marriage and poverty was.
I'm
and
curious to hear more about superstition. What is the superstition?
Superstition actually in the sense that girls should not be educated, that means to such some level. They should go for marriage, they should go for family maintenance, they should be trained to breed up their child or children like this. And if girls are educated more, then that will be a problem for the society. That means they will start dominating male persons or they will raise or they will learn to raise their voice in the family matters.
Sure.
So to suppress them, they should not be taught or they should not be educated much more than the boys in the family. Actually, they should not get more opportunity than the boys in the family.
Okay.
Okay, that's
Great.
it.
Thank you, ma'am. And if you can pass to the table next to you.
Thank you, sir. In our table, we find that poverty is the main factor for women education, and our social system is another thing that girls are not coming to their schools because government is provided many free education, but still girls are not coming. The main thing behind this is, I think, poverty.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
The table behind.
Thank you. From our table, the pointers, the family responsibilities, social security, dependency, cultural dispositions, and predisposition, and early marriage.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Table to my left.
Thank you. Actually, earlier, what we discussed in our table, everything we already performed from other tables.
Sure.
So it's poverty, insecurity, safety, communication, religious barrier, cultural barrier, and access. This is maybe it's new. Girls are not access all here. This is the lack of access for girls.
Okay.
This is.
Thank you, ma'am. The next table.
7 challenges we identified from our table. First one, transport problem, toilet problems in school, family, values, security, and lack of awareness at all levels.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Our penultimate table.
We have just only one new one, mobility, because it is a very big problem for us because parents are not, want to send their girls to the far away for the school.
Sure.
So mobility is a big problem in this
Okay.
regard. Thank you.
And our last table, but not least.
Thank you. You have said that women should talk today.
Yes.
And from every table, only one table, one man talk. I think it's the men issue also. So if you give me the opportunity, I will say first, and I have requested him, if you give me the opportunity, he will say something. So the first thing is poverty, of course. Patriarchy, traditional mindset, and religion is there. These are the broader spectrum. And like 7 to 8 years, we have seen that the girl-child marriage has been increased because of the insecurity and political unrest. So these are the very nitty-gritty things, but those are the broader side. And for these reasons, political, like insecurity is happening in the country. It's too much, you know. The parents cannot send their girl child to the school because of the insecurity when they go to the school. So they are being like victim of the violence, if teasing. Ultimately, they become the victim of the rape and other abuses. So those are the reasons the parents are becoming scared, and the girl-child marriage is increasing a lot.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. So we heard a lot of different reasons here, and the point that I wanted to make by having you discuss the challenges first was to understand that gender is an issue that affects everyone, everywhere, and it's a cross-cutting issue in education. So none of the things you mentioned about the challenges had to do specifically with schools or teachers, things like that. So I think when we talk about this, the discussion needs to be much more broader than what's happening in our classrooms, because the majority of things that you said that affect girls and women in education, at least here in Bangladesh, are things that happen outside of the classroom. And in my experiences in other countries, it's almost the same thing. Okay? All right, so to end this activity on a positive note, the next 2 minutes, I would like you to discuss what are the biggest opportunities facing girls and women who would like to participate in education in your context. And again, 1 word per person, and we'll report after 2 minutes. Biggest opportunities. There must be something in if you go to slideshow. Here. But it's not, maybe right click. Screen, maybe. All right, we'll break for now with that discussion, and let's reverse it. We'll start here with the table at the head of the room. He may. Equal participation.
Actually, mindset is changing. People mindset is changing due to government initiative.
Wait a minute,
and
I
private initiative.
can't hear him because people are talking. Thank you.
Actually, now this time, government is taking initiative to change the people's mind, and as well as NGO and foreign firms are currently work to change the people's minds. And for these reasons, people are thinking that male and female have the same priorities, same rights. This is why female and girls are coming out from their barriers, and they are doing well. So we can see the recent education results, higher secondary school certificates exams, girls are doing better than male. So this is the results from the government and private organizations and NGO also. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our table here.
Thanks, Ronda. So we identified a few opportunities. The changing mindset one was a good one, and for that there was also Meena, which is this cartoon character role model in Bangladesh that goes to school, and so a lot of girls are like want to be like Meena, and it's good to go to school.
And is that on TV?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then government stipends to enable girls to go to school. We think an opportunity exists in the fact that Bangladesh has such great mobile penetration. Now we have to tap the opportunity. The huge network of NGOs that are also providing education services. Women's empowerment through microfinance, because it's shown that empowered mothers are more likely to send their daughters to school. And then finally, we think there's a space for an opportunity. If we can create more jobs for girls coming out of grade 10, then we feel there would be more likely to finish up to grade 10.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Anwar Haq from this table. Yeah, there are so many positive things, which is rare in the world. The constitution provision, national government commitment, that basic education is government responsibility.
Sure.
This proper use is the important. Next came the compulsory primary education compulsory law 1990.
Okay.
If these two are there, why do we bother so much? It is the government responsibility first.
Okay.
Then others are coming. But we must not mix up with formal education, non-formal education, and informal education.
Yes.
We are diluting formal education, repeatedly bringing in these things. I'm very sorry with malice to none. With malice to none. I'm very sorry, and I'm very serious that since our constitution provides this facility and the Compulsory Primary Education Act 1990, this is a very big thing. We can stop misuses of so many funds, government funds in many places. Even we can reduce the number of ministry. We don't need more than 2/3 ministry. I'm sorry, as a citizen I'm talking
Okay,
about.
what other
So we
words
can
did your
save a lot
group
of
share?
money from wastages, and that we can invest in basic education first.
Okay.
And there are a lot of irrelevant secondary and higher education. Irrelevant. So we call quality, relevance. Where is the relevance?
Okay,
And
so
a lot
what
of
other
wastage in higher
opportunities were
education.
shared, sir?
Yeah.
What other
Then
opportunities?
female stipend project. That should be misuse is there. That should be stopped. And stipend should be increased. Then legal support and institutional facility infrastructure improvement.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And can we have the table to my left?
Sorry, this time one opportunity that I have gotten from my table, I've gotten to talk from on my table. Favorable policy for women, stipend program already said, quota for job, somewhere that means in primary education, 60% women's teacher. And yes, for motivating the girls' education, flexibility and media coverage, and strong advocacy.
Okay.
As the main thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Next, Johan.
I have a new one. That's the availability of textbooks and what's in the textbooks. Stipends, participatory learning, policies, and that was mentioned, I think, already, the favorable policies. Earning power, and related to that, more jobs.
Sure.
And awareness among family.
Okay. Great, thank you. The table in the back.
Thank you. Great. We had many of the same points, but the one that came up again and again was that there are more women in different sectors in higher profile jobs, and that was actually increasing sort of ambition and belief in what could happen. And in particular, someone else mentioned the quotas. And also in the media, there seemed to be a lot of sort of positive models that was actually, I think, giving hope and I think actually a belief about that there were greater opportunities and education was a way to actually realise them.
Great, thank you. And then after we'll circle back.
Hello. The women education opportunities we discussed so far. The more important thing is female stipend, which has already mentioned. Media role nowadays has playing a very important role. There are so many dramas and cartoons revealed for the women education. And public-private initiative is another important thing for women education, and government initiatives. These are the opportunities for women.
Thank you so much. And the woman here, before we continue on, you wanted to add?
Actually, this is not true. Girls are not coming to school. Our Enrollment rate is very high. It is more than 50% that girls are coming than boys. And our total...
At which grade level? Secondary or primary?
Both primary and secondary. And our net enrollment role is near 100%. And the main thing is our girls' education is free up to university level. I think the main problem is the dropout rate. We are not yet control it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Table far back.
Thank you. Most of the points have already come out from other tables, just reiterating them. Government incentives, like the full free books, stipend program for the women. Second one is the job opportunity, as mentioned before. Last one is the access to the technology, like online courses, outsourcing opportunity, work from home, that also encourage women to get the education. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. In our country, I think women are getting lots of opportunities in education sector. Almost all the points have been said. Free cost education up to higher secondary level. Stipends are also given by the government to make our women educated. Another point is that in the textbooks, up to higher secondary levels, girls are focused. These are the points.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I like that two people actually mentioned the textbooks, because we have this same problem in my country, the United States, where a lot of our textbooks still feature traditional gender roles when it comes to careers and things of that nature. So I think that would be positive. Great. So thank you for being so participatory there, and I'm glad we had equal representation throughout the feedback session. Now I'm going to continue on and warn you that I can't get the notes view up, so I'm going to be doing this from memory. So the next thing I wanted to briefly highlight and stress is, again, when I talk about gender and education, I'm not saying gender equals girls and women, because gender, there are at least 3 genders that I know of, and depending on the country, there can be a country or culture, there can be 4 or more. So in this picture, as you see, we kind of have like a scale holding brains, and I'm kind of using that as a metaphor for education. Personally, I believe that men, women, boys, and girls all have an equal opportunity to benefit from education. However, we all know that this is not the case. But I also wanted to highlight a point that probably doesn't go spoken often, because it's not that common, but in countries such as the Philippines, in Southeast Asia, Chile in South America, and also in South Africa, which is in Africa, these 3 countries all have the reverse gender problem, in that there are more girls enrolled in schools and more girls outperforming boys. So when I'm talking about gender, it's an acknowledgement that the problem can work the same way. And actually, until quite recently in South Africa, they didn't have this problem, but they think the focus was so much on girls' education that it tilted the balance the other way. So I think we also need to be mindful of that. Nevertheless, despite these countries having the opposite gender balance when it comes to school participation, men still earn way more than women in these countries, and also they are more inclined to be involved in STEM professions, so STEM being science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So despite that, there are still other gender challenges that are specific to girls and women, but men and boys also have their struggle too. However, in this presentation, I'm going to speak on women and girls, because that's what I know best as a woman, but wanted to acknowledge that for the audience, because here we have at least 2 genders present. Okay, so the next question I want to pose is, what has tech got to do with it? So yesterday, I actually loved all the presentations that my colleagues gave because they really set the scene for some of the examples that I'll share with you today. But namely, I think Dr. Power's presentation about evidence in ed tech, does it work, does it not work, how does it work, how does it help? One of the things that I found interesting, I was at a conference in Uganda earlier this year with a colleague who works in ed tech for DFID, and at the end of her presentation, which I think was about the same meta review that Dr. Power presented, she said that they think mobiles and mobile phones are one of the most promising tools for education that we have in the next few decades. Now, why? For me, growing up in the US, we were very privileged in some respects to have schools that had computers. And pretty much as every new wave of technology has come out, we've been able to benefit from laptops, tablets, mobile phones, things of this nature. But one of the things that I find troubling, and I think Gary highlighted this issue yesterday when he talked about the various one-to-one initiatives like Plan Cebal, which is in Uruguay, is that correct? So you have governments who sometimes it's a political ploy to use technology in education. So for example, in a country context I'm quite familiar with, not because I'm from there, but Kenya, the last election which took place in 2013, the government that's now in power during the campaign said, okay, if we're elected, every child in Kenya is going to get a laptop. Okay? Now, what's the problem with that? If you are the opposing candidate, what are you going to say? No, don't give them computers. And the populace will look at you like you don't want children to benefit, you don't want them to grow. But for me, technology and education is now increasingly being used as a political tool, and I think that speaks to some of the points made yesterday in terms of the lack of evidence, the lack of support that's being given to collect evidence, because often these initiatives are done without forethought to cost, sustainability, or even the real objectives. What are we doing this for? Why are we introducing this? And another point in terms of what's tech got to do with it is the fact that in many of these countries that face increasing strains on education and the budget is that there is a huge availability of mobile phones. So for me, how I was first inspired by mobile learning, I was a teacher in Equatorial Guinea and in South Korea, and in those countries, I saw mobile phones everywhere, saw young and old, men and women, boys, girls using them. And when I returned to the US to do my first master's, which was in language teaching, I came across mobile-assisted language learning. And for me, it was like my brain exploded. Like, how had I never thought about that? Here's this tool that you can relatively easily access information, yet when you look at a lot of initiatives, people are focusing on devices that are more expensive. Most people don't have them, or if they do have them, are not skilled enough to use them. So for me, I think when you're asking, or when I'm asking the question, what's tech got to do with it, I think there are a number of issues that need to be considered. And for me, why I'm so positive about the potential of mobile phones and mobile learning is because of the number of projects that I have seen, some with very strong evidence of what they can do for people. Okay, so next up, does everyone have a mobile phone here? Yes? Okay, can I ask you to take it out, turn it on if it's off? Yeah, you never hear teachers say that, but I'm breaking the mold today. All right, everyone have them out. Okay, because the next thing I want to do, another kind of interaction with you all and the audience, is a mobile poll. Okay, so how this works, And I'm going to ask your kind generosity to spare one international text to this number. So it says, the question is, can a person learn anything from a mobile device? And instead of going around the room and asking you, I want you to use your mobile devices. So if you open your texting function and open a new message. I have an iPhone, so you probably have it different if you're on an Android or a basic feature phone. And for the number, enter the one at the top there, 614 or plus 614 2988 3481. And I'll repeat that in case you're too far away to see it. It's plus 61 429 88 3481. Okay, that's the number you're going to text to. And then for the message that you enter, returning to the question, can a person learn anything from a mobile device? If you think yes, in your message you enter the code 202531. And if you think no, enter 202532. I'll give you a minute or so to do that, and I'll also do that, although I think you probably know my answer. And send. I tried to research how much it would cost, but I was not able to find out on the operators' websites how much an international text would cost, but it shouldn't be too much for most people here. Okay, votes coming in. I'm speaking to the right audience, I think. Okay. Wait about 30 more seconds as people send them in. And if you happen to have 3G access, you can also do it by going to the web address polev.com/BCEIA for British Council English in Action. All right, so we have 17 yeses and 2 nos. Now, why I asked this question is also to reference my colleague at the GSMA who helped to bring me here, Alex Tyers, because she and I met, she used to work for the British Council, and she did a presentation on part of the work with English in Action, where she found that 3 women, I think it was 3 or 4 women who participated in a study, when they thought about technology devices, ICT devices that they can learn from, the mobile phone was either thought of as being not possible to learn from, or it was like on the lowest rung when compared to other media such as television, radio, and of course, laptop computers. So I think it's great to see that there's open minds in the audience as it relates to mobile learning here. Now, what I'm going to do to kind of round out the session is to briefly discuss global examples of mobile learning, focusing on kind of the learning experience and the need that arose that caused the mobile learning intervention. All right, first, so I had to pick one from Bangladesh, of course, because I can't come to your house without mentioning your country. So the first one, and I don't think anyone else is speaking about this today, is one that should be launching, I believe, next month between the Asia Foundation and Bangalink. Now, one of the things that I really liked as we talked about the discussions earlier, some people mentioned there's a big problems with women and getting jobs. This could help them complete schools. And then even yesterday, Dr. Chowdhury mentioned kind of market sector skills development. So this initiative is quite cool because what it's going to do is work with women's entrepreneur groups and then also use mobile learning to help educate women about how to be an entrepreneur. A lot of people think, I I think especially when it comes to developing countries, that people just wake up and they can have a successful business. But I think all of you know it's not as easy as that. So one of the things that this project is going to teach is how to set up a business, how to maintain a business, how to market your business. And another thing that it will do is provide, someone mentioned microfinance earlier. It's also going to feature elements of that. And this is public knowledge, even though it hasn't debuted yet. So for me, an initiative like this, there's a need. Why? And I'll go to my notes briefly. To share what they said. So right now in Bangladesh, small and medium-sized enterprises are predominantly male-owned and operated, yet with the number of women who could do the same, the contribution to economic development in your country would be much higher if more women were actively participating in your economy. And I think it was the other Dr. Chowdhury yesterday who mentioned that women have to hold up half the sky. And right now they don't have all of the tools to do that. So I think this initiative in Bangladesh is one of the cool ways that that will happen, using mobile technology as an enabler for learning opportunities. Next is one from Pakistan that involved UNESCO, Mobile Link, which is one of the leading operators, mobile network operators there, Nokia, and an NGO named Agahi. Okay? So this project actually had dual purposes. One is, I think someone may have mentioned yesterday, Pakistan is a country that has one of the lowest literacy levels in the world for all people, and that problem is particularly acute among women and girls. And as some people here mentioned today, with insecurity, one of the big challenges for women and girls in Pakistan is that their ability to travel is curtailed. They're not regularly able to attend education. And then for girls, even if they are able to attend it, quite often they're being taught by female teachers who themselves may be illiterate. So what did this project do? In recognition of this very serious problem, it used the mobile phone to teach basic literacy skills. So how it worked is the women were sent content to help them build their literacy and also build literacy in using a keypad for communication. And through this program, more than, I think it was 3,500 women became literate through this learning. So in 2013, UNESCO and Mobile Link actually expanded this, and now they're working as well with teachers to help female teachers become not only literate, but also to bring skills development activities for instruction all through the mobile phones. For me, this is amazing because, again, it doesn't take an expensive, prone to break down computer. I think I saw a lot of the phones in here yesterday, the very basic Nokia phones, and this is what they're using. These phones cost about $50 US, fairly easy to maintain, and again, meeting a very big need in a creative way. Next, surprise, there's a boy. As I mentioned earlier, in the Philippines, that's one of the countries where, and I was there last year, and I walked into a secondary classroom and was floored that there were a sea of girls and maybe 2 or 3 boys in the entire classroom. And so for me, I asked about this, like, wow, why are there so many girls? And they explained that a lot of boys tend to drop out at a very early age because they need to provide for their families. And in the Philippines, women are actually strongly encouraged to finish their education. So in this case, we worked, the GSMA and myself worked with the 2 operators in the Philippines, Smart Communications and Globe Telecom, under a national program in partnership with the Department of Education and the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority in the Philippines to actually target these out-of-school youth to help them make returns to education, but also to help them to develop skills. So also next month, these new services should be launching. Smart Communications will be launching a service that helps these out-of-school young men finish their primary education using mobiles and also tablet devices. And Globe is actually providing English language learning on mobile, but specific to the BPO industry, which is the business process outsourcing or call center. So this product was thought of by Globe because in their sector analysis, the BPO industry in the Philippines employs a lot of people, and if they can get more people with enough English language skills to participate in this initiative, then the economic development, men are also feeling more empowered because they've been able to educate themselves and to get a job. So the GSMA, we're very proud of these two initiatives and proud of the quite innovative work that the Philippines government is doing. And although these are commercial opportunities, the government is actually subsidizing access for the out-of-school youth so they don't pay anything to access these services. So we're really excited about that. And then last but not least, I'll speak a little bit about my experience in Kenya. I was just there for 7 months earlier this year doing my PhD field work. And I did that in partnership with World Reader and Nokia, not in the sense that they funded the research, but they actually supported by, number one, World Reader provided access to data so I could see what the girls in my study were doing. And Nokia actually donated phones, which was quite good. And Airtel and World Reader now have a partnership throughout their footprint in Africa to promote this. So what is World Reader? If any of you have an Android phone, or if you have a Nokia feature phone, almost any Nokia feature phone works, World Reader is what I think to be one of the most simple yet amazing solutions that there are in educational technology today. World Reader can be installed on mobile phones, and once installed, a user has access to more than 6,000 books on their mobile phone, okay? And the access to these books is totally free. There are actually a lot of different languages as well. I was surprised because one of the main languages in Kenya is Luo, and they even had books in Luo, which for my girls, they felt like, wow, I can read something in my language. And so this application is what I introduced in my study with girls, and did it in an after-school setting because probably similar to many countries, mobile phones are banned in the classrooms in Kenya. So I worked with the girls out of school and kind of looked at, okay, what happens when they get access to this application. So as you see me in the middle working with one of the learners there, that young lady's name is Ava. And this is when we were doing the installation for the app and also showing the girls how to use it. And then to the right of that, you have one of the messages that the girls actually sent me about the app after I introduced it to them. And while it's in Kenyan text speak, basically says, hey, how are you doing, miss? Thank you for introducing us to such an educative tool like this. I'm in the process right now of analyzing the data, including the usage statistics, but one of the things that I found is that since the introduction of the apps, almost every girl read at least one time per day, which was really great, and they continue to use it even when I'm not there, because often people feel influenced by a researcher. I should read, she's here, she's helped me to get access to this, but even since I've returned to the UK, they're still using this. And also, in talking with the school, of course, I can't 100% attribute it to this, but almost every girl that participated in my study made a full grade advance from term 1 of school to term 2. So for me, I think the gentleman earlier talked about informal and non-formal learning diluting formal education, but I disagree because I think, as many of us may know, learning is a lifelong process, and every learning opportunity we get serves as a building block to things in, huh? Okay. Uh-huh.
We are always mixing with others. That's the problem.
Okay, sorry to misstate your intention. I thought that's what you said. Okay, so for me, another thing that kind of backed this up, and Dr. Power didn't mention this yesterday, but this study, a formal study was released earlier this year with UNESCO, and it found that in a survey of 4,000 world readers in 7 countries, on average, women read more books than men, and also they read for longer periods. And so for me, this was great because often people look at the screen size of a mobile and say, okay, this is too small, I can't do it. But what I found in Kenya is that if you have nothing else, if you don't have books, if your books are out of date, if you can't afford to buy books, using your mobile phone as a medium for reading is something that can be quite empowering. So to give you a cost comparison, in the local currency, to read a book by mobile costs about 3 Kenyan shillings, and to buy a book at minimum is about 100 shillings. So this kind of intervention, as Andy mentioned earlier this morning, was also cost effective for the girls in my study. One of my favorite ed tech people asked this question quite provocatively. He says, if mobile technology is an answer to gendered education challenges, what is the question? What are we trying to fix? And so earlier today, when we talked about the different challenges and opportunities, I think one of the things, as you'll see from the picture on the left, is that mobile phones can actually be used in classrooms for encouraging equal participation among men and women. So just like I did the poll with you today, that's another thing that can be done in classrooms, because as I've observed in settings like in Kenya and Equatorial Guinea, almost always girls will not participate. They'll keep their hand down while boys are doing like this. So using mobile in this way can help level the responses you get from people. And then also on the right, there's a picture and it has all this different technology, and the boy is reading a book, and it's kind of implying, okay, why are you reading a book when you have all this technology? And I want to point out that in many cases it's the reverse, that you don't have the books, yet you have this device. So why aren't you using it for that purpose? Okay. So I wanted to conclude here with 3 gender and broader ed tech policy considerations. As I keep stressing throughout this presentation, gender does not equal girls and women. And so I think governments who are truly serious about gender equality in education, especially in the post-2015 era, need to be serious and also see boys and men as possible advocates for gender equality, because women and girls, we're not going to do it ourselves. We don't exist in Bangladesh alone. I don't exist in the United Kingdom alone. There are plenty of men who are there who can also help make sure that I have equal opportunities similar to what they have. And tech can actually be a tool for this. And as an example of this, in Kenya, there was an app that was released a few years ago that actually used mobile gaming to help teach boys about why it's important to help make sure girls have equal opportunities. So giving it an element at a young age to start developing those values. Next, investing in learning opportunities for girls and women during after school hours or during their free time. Often women and girls in many countries are responsible for saving the world, is what I call it, because I am always amazed at seeing a girl go to school from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., come home, cook, clean, draw water, iron, run to the store, and then at the end of that, maybe have 30 minutes to an hour, if they're lucky, for themselves. And it's pretty much the same for women as well. So for me, I think when governments or NGOs are trying to work around this issue, although it doesn't change the situation in terms of the gender division of labor in the home, I think mobile phones can be a device to kind of help women and girls navigate this so that they at least have more opportunities to benefit despite their burden of work in the home. And last but not least, identify education challenges that affect women, men, boys, and girls on a lifelong basis. Yesterday, there was a gentleman who kept hammering on about primary education. And yes, primary education is a problem. Secondary education is a problem. Post-secondary education is a problem. And when you're an adult, you just don't stop learning. So identify ways that learning opportunities and challenges can be addressed across the life cycle, and apply technology only when it makes sense. I think as much as I love mobile learning, it really doesn't make sense in every case, but where it does, try it, because there, as I showed from the examples before, there are a lot of opportunities that can't be had any other way through traditional means. And that's it. Thank you very much for listening.